The satellite imagery flickered across the briefing room screen in Cyprus, showing the same compound that had frustrated American intelligence for 12 weeks straight. Lieutenant Colonel James McPherson studied the faces of his 3 operators seated around the metal table, each man's expression betraying nothing the weight of what they were about to undertake. The Americans had thrown everything at Hassan al-Rashidi: Predator drones, Delta Force raids, electronic surveillance that could hear a mouse sneeze from orbit. Yet the former Iraqi chemical weapons expert remained as elusive as smoke in the Syrian desert. McPherson clicked through the slides showing of failed American operations: burning helicopters, compromised safe houses, informants found with their throats cut. Each image represented millions of dollars and months of planning reduced to ash and blood. The Americans operated like they were still fighting in Afghanistan, bringing jammers to perform surgery there, every movement telegraphed days in advance through their massive logistical footprint. Al-Rashidi had built his survival around this predictability, creating a network of informants that reached into the heart of coalition operations. The 4SD arrived in Cyprus 6 hours earlier on a commercial flight, their equipment following through diplomatic channels that bypassed American oversight entirely. McPherson's team consisted of men who had spent years operating in the shadows of Iraq and Afghanistan, learning that the best operations were often the ones that looked nothing like operations al-Rashidi's patterns, not through satellite feeds, but through the observations of a Turkish smuggler who sold cigarettes to his guards, a Syrian widow who washed clothes for his compound, and most crucially, a bodyguard whose daughter needed medical treatment that British intelligence had quietly arranged. The plan emerged from simple: the Americans prepared another massive raid involving dozens of operators, air support, and electronic warfare assets. The SAS would infiltrate using identities as Russian arms dealers, a cover story that al-Rashidi himself expected, having arranged the meeting through intermediaries. The bodyguard had provided the critical intelligence that al-Rashidi always met potential suppliers personally in his underground laboratory, believing the chemical weapons stored there gave him leverage and protection. At precisely 0200 hours, the team executed their halo jump from a civilian cargo plane, whose flight plan showed it traveling from Istanbul to descended through the moonless Syrian sky, wearing Russian paratrooper gear purchased from black market dealers in Ukraine, their British equipment sealed in bags that would be buried upon landing. The drop zone sat 12 kilometers from al-Rashidi's compound, far enough to avoid his security perimeter, but close enough for the stolen gas trucks by local assets. The journey to the compound revealed the sophistication of al-Rashidi's security through its very absence. No checkpoints lined the roads, no obvious surveillance positions dotted the hills. Instead, every shepherd, every farmer, every traveler potentially served as eyes for his network. The SAS team moved like locals, their truck with crates marked in Cyrillic, their documentation showing them as representatives of a Chechen arms syndicate that al-Rashidi had been courting for months. The compound itself squatted against a hillside like a cancer, its walls topped with razor wire that gleamed dully in the starlight. Guards moved in patterns that seemed random, but followed the turned bodyguard had mapped over months of observation. The team arrived during the shift change, that vulnerable moment when tired men handed responsibility to fresh ones, when procedures became sloppy and attention wavered. McPherson spoke Russian with a Grozny accent perfected during years of operations, carrying the casual arrogance of a man who sold death for profit. The guards recognized the vehicles, the documentation, the attitude, all carefully crafted to match their expectations. Al-Rashidi had trained them to fear American technology, to watch for drones and electronic signatures, not 4 men who looked and acted exactly like the criminals they expected to arrive. The descent into the underground laboratory revealed al-Rashidi's true nature: Chemical weapons lined the walls in containers marked with dates and target codes, a catalogue of planned atrocities waiting for deployment. The man before a workbench, assembling components for what intelligence would later identify as a binary nerve agent designed to contaminate Kurdish water supplies. He turned at their entrance, his face shifting from anticipation to confusion in the heartbeat, before McPherson's suppressed pistol spoke twice. The extraction unagraphed precision. Thermite charges placed among the chemical stores would create temperatures hot enough to neutralize the agents while appearing as an accidental fire. The team shed their Russian identities like snakeskin, recovering cached motorcycles from a nearby wadi and disappearing into the network of goat paths that see. Behind them, the compound erupted in flames that would burn for 3 days, consuming all evidence of what had truly occurred. The submarine retrieval point lay 40 kilometers west, a stretch of Mediterranean coastline that appeared on no operational maps. The team reached it as dawn painted the horizon pink, their motorcycles abandoned in a ravine where local see them within hours. The submarine's periscope broke the surface for exactly 90 seconds, long enough for the 4 men to swim out and disappear beneath the waves. In Washington, generals studied satellite footage of the burning compound, trying to understand how their carefully planned operation, scheduled for the following week, had been preempted. The CIA Syria desk claimed credit for actionable intelligence while privately investigating how al-Rashidi had died when their sources insisted he had been planning to flee to Turkey. The official report would describe a coalition airstrike, a fiction that satisfied political requirements while obscuring the truth. McPherson's team returned to Hereford without fanfare, their operation existing in classified files that would remain sealed for 50 years. No medals adorned their uniforms, no commendations entered their records. They had prevented the deaths of thousands of Kurdish civilians, disrupted a chemical weapons network that stretched from Syria to Pakistan, and eliminated a target that had consumed millions in American resources, all in less than 4 hours from insertion to extraction. The lesson lived in the silence between official stories and operational reality. While American forces relied on overwhelming firepower and technological supremacy, the SAS had succeeded through cultural intelligence, minimal footprint, and the understanding that the best operations were often the ones that never appeared to be operations at all. Old prepared for satellites and drones, for Delta Force and Navy SEALs, for the full weight of American military power. He had not prepared for 4 men who understood that in the shadows of Syria, the most effective weapon was not technology, but the ability to become what the enemy expected to see. The chemical weapons that would have poised instead burned harmlessly in the desert air. The network al-Rashidi had built collapsed without its center, his lieutenants scattered or eliminated by Syrian forces eager to claim credit for destroying a threat to their sovereignty. The Americans continued their technological surveillance, their complex, their massive operations, never knowing that the solution to their 3-month problem had required only 4 men, stolen Russian equipment, and the willingness to operate outside the boundaries of conventional military thinking. In the end, Operation Nightshade existed as a ghost story whispered in the corridors of intelligence agencies, a reminder that sometimes the most problems yielded to the simplest solutions. McPherson filed his after-action report using language that revealed nothing while suggesting everything, a masterpiece of military writing that satisfied bureaucratic requirements while protecting operational methods that might be needed again. The Syrian desert reclaimed the compound within months, sand and wind erasing the scars of fire and violence. Local farmers avoided the area, spreading stories of chemical contamination that kept the curious at bay. In Kurdish villages, children played in clean water, unaware of the horror that had been prevented by 4 men whose names they would never know. whose existence remained hidden in the space between official denials and operational necessity, to the principle that the most effective military operations were often the ones that never officially occurred.